Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Post Conference Presser for Anfield Index. Another early start, another 9 a.m. on a slot. Now, interesting that I mentioned that because for this Welcome to Post Conference Presser, last season we had Jurgen sending Pep Linders to do these, didn't he? But Arne Slot steps out early. There is no deputy in place for this. And considering it's Carabao, ladies and gents, he said quite a bit. So the normal post-conference presser routine, we'll run through the questions he was asked, the answers he gave. We'll look back to Bournemouth on Saturday, any clues, anyone's played their way in and out. Maybe it's a little bit different. I know naturally with it being the Carabao. We'll talk about the threats that West Ham offer, and I'll give my predicted lineup, score, and scorers. So quite a bit to run through. And considering it was and the people will see Carabao as a lesser competition, there was quite a bit we got from Arne Slot in this. So let's get right into it. So he was asked at the start, it's the League Cup, and, where does it sit in your priorities? Priorities was always going to come up as a question, wasn't it? It says, it's very important as it's the next one, and those are always the most important ones. I know the history of the club, I know what happened last year, and I know how special winning a cup can be. We are far away from that, and we have a difficult tie against West Ham, an important one, as always. It's a difficult one, this one, because the easy part is, what else is he supposed to say, really? He's not going to say, oh, listen, we don't really give a toss, lads, to be honest. I'm more focused about the league and the Champions League, which a lot of people will be, and I get that, but he's never going to come out and say that, because then he's also not going to say, oh, well, to be honest, I'm just going to give the squad players to the games and rest my stars. He's never going to say that, no matter what anyone is thinking. And there is merit in thinking that. It's a tough one, this, I think, and it'll depend how you see it a little bit. The Carabao for many will be, if we go out, no one will care. There are people thinking that tonight, and, glad it doesn't go extra time because penalties, doesn't it, straight away, and I get that. There'll be people thinking, to be honest, it's the league and the Champions League. Those are our priorities. It's enough game. We haven't got the reinforcements we want. If we jib this, I won't be bothered. I understand that to an extent as well, by the way. I can understand and get behind that a little bit. Here's where the hypocritical nature comes in, and this is me saying this in my point of view as well. The Carabao Cup is the lowest on the priority list. Don't debate that for 1 second at all. But I tell you what, if you've been to those ones at Wembley and you bounced to Dua Lipa during the semi-finals against City, then the final where we won it, and the FA Cups, the League Cups, they're special. Just the fact we seem to do over Chelsea on pens or extra time or whatever, it's absolutely amazing. There's no two ways about it. And he kind of talked about this later on because he was asked about trophies, and he said, it's not only fans that love to win trophies, players and managers do. You all love to win something, but we have to play our first game of the tournament tomorrow. It's always nice to win something, and I know the history of the club that they've won it in such a special way with so many youngsters in the final. If you won it last season, it gives you a bit of, and then he kind of digressed, but because he couldn't sort of get that translation in English, but he said, we're the holders of the trophy, so we have to protect that, and we'll give everything to win it, put it that way. Yeah, for all the things that get forgotten about last season, I was there at Wembley. That Carabao Cup was special. And I know in the context, it's not the big trophies. People would have wanted to go all the way to Dublin and Atalanta. I get all that. But there was something so special about being at Wembley that day. And that photo lives long in the memory, doesn't it? With all those kids from the academy, Bobby Clark and McConnell absolutely doing over Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. It was amazing to see, those youngsters, the impact they had. Connor Bradley bombing on, it was so special that way. So I get there's a hypocrisy to it a little bit. I understand that the value in the Carabao Cup comes in winning it and nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. And I understand people will say, but the downside to that is the extra legs and the impact it had, and the likes of Bosley playing extra. I understand that at the same time. I completely can make that argument myself. However, there is something special about going to Wembley. There is something special about, winning a trophy. Because are we not in the game for trophies, and I know it's not the biggest ones. And I see some people call it Tin Pot or, things like that. So it's up to you how you view the Carabao Cup. But yeah, I understand there'll be mixed reactions on this one. And to be fair, I'm going to come across as a hypocrite in my team lineup because I wanted a raft of change. I wanted a raft of players, rested, but there's still special days at Wembley. So we'll see what happens with this one. He was also asked about game time for his squad. He said, yeah, you want all of them to play, but that isn't possible. There's only, name 11. We'll play with the best possible team, and then we can sometimes mean that other players who played a lot maybe need a rest because they're a bit more tired. They'll come in today and look at how they are and make a decision. Best possible team. I think that might be stretching it a bit from Arne's slot. We will see who's named in this. And some people will say best possible team of the alternates. Well, and it's not the best possible team by nature, isn't it? I think one of the big problems last season was we were naming a lot of our starting lineup like Szoboszlai in the Carabao Cup as well. They were playing minutes that we didn't necessarily want them to. So, yeah, always said anything about the strongest possible team. Let us just wait to see what happens and who's named tomorrow night. Also asked about Kelleher and Alisson. I was pulling together, didn't I? So he said, Queeve will be in goal. Alisson is getting there, but this game's going to come just a bit early. Looking at the weekend with Wolves, it's going to be tight. If it is this hammy strain, as apparently it is, it sounds like it's going to be tight. Listen, if it's Kelleher against Wolves, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's no absolute disaster. We want Alisson back, but in terms of the games he's going to play, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away in the Carabao Cup, if you had to pick a week in the season where you'd want Alisson out, it might have been around this one. So I'm not going to cry too much about that at the same time. I think that is important to say. He was also asked about rhythm and getting rhythm into players that haven't really played. So, well, the ones that haven't played a lot for Liverpool have played games with their country as well. But it's important to keep getting them playing time, and it's very difficult to arrange friendlies for them. And that's why we've rotated a bit in the last few games and seen others maybe coming in. It might be a chance for the players to come in, a chance for the players to get some playing time as well. If they do really well during the week, which they've all done at times, and take their chance, that's what you saw with Darwin last week. Yeah, it's interesting. There's some that haven't really played any games, but you think of the likes of Tyler Morton, who played for England under 21s, and then weirdly played for Liverpool under 21s, which is, well below the level he is that way. Endo, you make people like that. He did play the few games with Japan, so they are ticking over, even if they're not getting minutes in our team. And even someone like the rotation that he talked about, Cody Gakpo, plays those minutes for Holland, which is great. And he talked about that being good before. Yes, he goes back to the bench for Bournemouth, but Diaz worked, didn't he, brilliantly? And then it was great the way he said it, that people have been built in, like Darwin Núñez. That's a bit of a blueprint for people now, isn't he? If you work hard, and then you have to take your chance when it comes. And I'll mention Darwin again when we come to the team lineup, because I get a feeling he's going to figure what we will have to say on this. And I'm speaking about them as well, because he was asked, players like Gakpo and Núñez are hungry for it. Said every player is hungry to get some game time. There's so much competition, so many good players that like to go out and play for a great club like this in front of a great number of supporters. We're in a good place with the players we have, and I can choose between a lot of players for tomorrow. Just like the way he's just starting on a slot to mention the fans a bit more, that the trust almost feels like it's building on both sides, doesn't it? Because he's a new coach coming into a new setting. Everyone was a bit, what's this going to be like? And you're hearing his name now being chanted because of what we're seeing on the pitch. You can almost feel that he's getting a bit more comfortable, or confident maybe is the right word, about talking about that relationship with fans like he has today. And, the references to calling it a great stadium, great fans to play in front of. How he even said in his last press conference before this one about how, we can't play expectations, but it's great when the fans can make that noise as well. So it is building a relationship between Slot and the fans. And I also think, and I could be wrong on this, he's exceeded a lot of people's expectations, which naturally will help. As much as they talk about settling a new club, be it a player or anyone else, if you do the business on the pitch, the rest will tend to fall into place. It's when that doesn't happen, other things start getting brought up, don't they? So it's going well so far. Just feels like in a great way he's getting more confidence. So hopefully we continue in that route as well. Then a few questions which I found most interesting in the entire press conference on Trent, his relationship, defending, all that type of stuff. So let's get into these. He said, always asked her about Trent, his relationship, and the nice comments he made about Arne. So it's nice to hear it and read it, because we all remember the day Jurgen left and what that meant to him. To hear him saying after 2 to 3 months about his new manager is nice. It's not always easy to come in and replace a manager like this, and he feels like this is a good thing for him. That is a positive thing. They will get, although, a lot of individual attention, and if they get better, then the team gets better. I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to put some other comments that he was asked, or questions where he was asked about Trent, into that as well, because he asked about Trent's defensive side, which may be the most interesting for me. So it's difficult for me to judge how it's been in years before. The only thing I can see we talk about is a player that's won the Champions League and the league title, and mentioned himself that winning the league is about defending. So it's clear to me that he's been a good defender all his life. Because he's so special with the ball, all the emphasis goes there. It's not if he's capable of doing things, it's more his concentration rate. Constantly being in 100% focus, what's more about with him. What we talk about a lot is that he has to stay active in every situation of the game. Not that he and I learned to defend in the last few months only, just getting him to understand what it is necessary to play his best possible game. So much to unpick with. It's short snippet, it seems, but these Slot comments around Trent, I think it's great. It's good to hear that he liked to read that. You can clearly see, as he mentioned, even in this 2 to 3 months, there is some relationship building there. So that is brilliant as well. And also, you can see that Slot's not stupid. He sets it on a backdrop of, a new manager, what Klopp meant to Trent. And he talked about this, so it's good he has that understanding. But what I really loved was the way he talks about defensive side. That, yes, as he said, this is Slot saying this quite rightly, and myth-busting all the media nonsense that comes out from people around Trent can't defend. And it's the same people like Gary Neville will be telling you Trent can't play in the team, and then how have England left him out at the same time? It's that hypocrisy and contradiction that has dominated things for Trent in the last year or so. This belief that somehow, despite what we see with our own eyes, the likes of Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier are superhuman defenders compared where Trent is average. In the words of Arne Slot, this is a defender that's won the Champions League and league title, and mentioned how important winning a league is. It's about defending. So it's clear to me he's been a good defender all his life. Absolutely true. The second part he made in the press conference is true, though, as well. What they've talked about, it's about constantly being 100% in focus and his concentration. There's always been I think we have to be honest on this, a little bit of a feeling with Trent. Is it will or is it skill? The skill he has, he's always had the skill of defending. He's not it's amazing. He's a very good defender. What it is sometimes, it's about concentration. I think Slot's right on that. Sometimes you almost got the impression, and it's partly because of the midfield chat, the right back chat. Does Trent always want to defend it and do that sort of element of the game? Not being fully convinced on that. It doesn't make him a good player, a bad player. As Slot said, the qualities are outstanding going forward, so that's dominated. It is possible, though, someone can be that good at going forward in defence and also a good defender at the same time. It's like everyone's just waking up to that a little bit, isn't it? People are amazed that, he can shackle Leao. They're amazed he can make tackles, do all these types of things we've known. We've just also questioned about the will and the skill to go together. So I love the fact that Slot answered in that way. I think he got it absolutely spot on. And also it's good to mention because link this together. He was asked about the defence, have they got the meanest defence, how that's gone. He goes, yeah, defence has been really good, but we needed our goalkeeper on too many times to keep the clean sheet. I looked at the league table and looked at which teams we face now and where they are in the table. All of them, apart from United, are on the right side of the table. I think you call it the top and the bottom, and there's a little joking around that. So we have to take that into account. If we're able to play those teams as well after West Ham, because we go for 2 difficult away games, that's great. But let's see where we are then. Maybe the fixture schedule has been nice to us, and from 5 games played, 3 at home, that does help as well. Love the way he answered this, not getting carried away, because it could be easy to be like, yeah, we've got the bet, look at our defence, look at our Canate, look at our Van Dijk, etc. But it's interesting, yeah, we are calling our keeper a few times. I think that the one side to that is, he's right in the sense we are calling on our keeper a bit. It does tend to be almost, I don't want to say the game's gone, or I think garbage time, the up boys refer to it as, yes, Kelleher makes that great reaction save, but it's 3-0. And yes, it's nice. We want to keep the clean sheet. I love that attitude. We definitely want to. You saw Ibu giving the fist pump, didn't you, when he makes those blocks at the end. I love that attitude. But it's not necessarily in those key moments at 0-0, if that makes sense. And yes, even Alisson's had to do a few at certain times, but it is better if you are having to do that if there is a 2-goal or more cushion by nature. It's very late on, isn't it? Maybe, though, it's still good to hear that he's striving for those standards, that you want to still fully control that part of the game. And I felt, if you think of all of them recently, Brentford, even at 2-0, was the one we were still controlling it and keeping the ball late on. So there'll just be little things he wants to refine. But as I said, so much I liked and that he got into in this press conference. We still learn things from Arne Slot, don't we, on a regular basis. And the other thing, there was other bits I'm not going to go into, is I asked about Kelleher, Diaz, Ibu, and all this. But young Trey Ione, he said, well, because that's, will he be with the under-21s tonight, or could he be with you? So, well, let's see how everyone comes in this morning. There's a fair chance to be in our squad than the under-21s, but let's see how all the players are. He needs playing time to develop, but it's so important for him to keep playing his games. For him to develop, he needs to train with us and playing time at the highest possible level we can get him. Training with midfielders like we have helps him to develop at the highest possible level. We are aware, though, of the fact he is just 17. Listen, he was unbelievable, Trey Ione, wasn't he, in the pre-season bits. We like what we saw. We're still, people still talk about that volley, don't they, against Sevilla, I think it was. Brilliant. But you have to sort of dampen down expectations. I think it's good. I think they've got it right that he's playing the under-21 still and, shining at that level. But also, what an opportunity for him to learn from the likes of Gravenberg, see how he's done it. McAllister especially, those other midfielders around him. It's just going to bring up his level. But he is still only 17. That being said, I think we're all kind of hoping he gets minutes in this one tomorrow. I don't think there's any debate about that at all. Everyone wants to see him get minutes. You will put your own number on that, but against West Ham, we can't guarantee by any means, but perfect situation again. It's a few goals up and then he comes in. That would be brilliant for us, wouldn't it, eh? So that was, ladies and gents, the big bits of the Q&A from Arne Slot. Again, a lot we're getting from him each time. I am enjoying these press conference early doors, the style, and there's just a little bit more we're seeming to get on every appearance, so I am liking it. Bournemouth lessons. Now, normally we talk about playing their way in or out. Everyone's seen the game. We've talked about this a lot. I think the big thing is so many played so well. Their reward is don't turn up. That would be it for me. And you'll see that when I pick my team lineup. Ring the changes galore. If Carroll from the canteen is in double pivot tomorrow night, I'm not massively concerned, I have to be honest. And that, I know it's going to sound hypocritical because I said before, I love the Carabao Cup. I've loved the finals we've got to, the winning, just the fact we seem to take Chelsea no matter what the circumstances in penalties or extra time. It's brilliant. I love all of that. I really do. But at the same time, with it being the lowest on the priority list. I think that seems to be pretty unanimous from what I'm sensing from Liverpool fans everywhere, that you can still ring the changes and put a brilliant team out. Let's not undersell this at all. Liverpool's squad that's available has unbelievable options still. Let's not just dismiss that completely, but at the same time, you can rest the key cogs in the machine, can't you? That's, to me, how I'm looking at that when we say, who's played their way in and out from Bournemouth. It's about who's earned that rest and who actually it might be important to rest at the same time. That's how I see it. West Ham threats, I mean, Slot said they are a good team. They're not quite performing, whether that's Lopetegui or the players, as people would expect, but they brought a lot of players in, and Fulkrug doesn't always seem to play. Tadebo's on the bench all the time. He's not getting in at all. Somerville, a bit mixed, should have had a penalty, by the way, on Saturday. And I know they were pretty bad, weren't they, in that early kickoff against Chelsea. 3-0. I mean, Chelsea at times, I have to be honest, seem to waltz through. So let's hope the defence is that inviting for us at the same time. But there's a few goals in them. Jared Bowen's got a few. And by the way, if Jared Bowen plays, Jared Bowen loves Anfield. We know this. Let's not undersell that at all. He got the goal in the league, didn't he, from the header. He's also, even in the Carabao last season, even though we hammered them, there was that bit where he just absolutely dropped the shoulder and did Quansah and puts a brilliant finish in the top corner. So let's not just write off West Ham as mugs or no threat at all. Plus, they'll also be looking at this and thinking, well, Liverpool aren't going to name their strongest team. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes quite strong, Lopetegui, but I have nothing to really base that on massively, as some of you may be shouting differently. I mean, you can't say it's been a good start. They won their opening game, didn't they? Away at Palace, which looks a good victory on paper. And then it's been pretty bad since then. 1 draw and 3 losses. But when you look at it, and Slot talked about, he called it the left and the right of the table, top bottom, as we say. The defeats at home were against Villa, Chelsea and City. So it's not mugs in that sense. You would also argue the draw they relied on a 95th minute Danny Ings equaliser. So, it's not going swimmingly, but I am not just going to write off West Ham as a non-entity at this time. I think that is so, so important to say. I would be surprised if they went quite strong and they have threats. And rhythm will be big, because whatever you say, if it is Owen and those, you'd think, okay, you'd expect Van Dijk and Konate to shackle them, but you're expecting it to be different centre-halves without rhythm. So this will be interesting. Which then probably leads to the big element of lineup. Now, what I want, I don't think I'll fully get, and I mean, it would be about the night off for me. I would have genuinely Van Dijk and Konate, Trent, night off completely. The whole midfield three, Mac, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, night off completely. Even the forward line, I would give Diaz and Salah the night off. And I mean, that's a whole raft of changes. I wouldn't even have them in the squad personally, just rest ahead of Wolves. That still means, by the way, it's an unbelievable side, because even with that, you can still play. If you think of this side, Bradley, Tsimikas, the fullbacks, Quansah, Gomez in the centre, with Kelleher obviously next. That's still a really strong back five, people. Even in the middle, Morton, Jones, Endo. And I know, God, if Endo doesn't get minutes tomorrow, I'm sorry, his first call should be to his agent about getting him over in January. Even Tyler Morton should probably, if he doesn't, then you have to look at it that way. But I think it's more important about giving the main three the night off completely, because they're getting minutes in their legs, and it would be nice just to cut that. And then if you think, ladies and gents, even if you only want to play two of those, that still leaves your forward options so strong. Gakpo will get a start in this, because it was Diaz the last game. Jota didn't play a minute against Bournemouth. Nunes is a debate, isn't it? Keep him in rhythm, and Slot's mentioned it. That's the one I'm really struggling to pick for me personally. Chiesa. You expect Chiesa to start this one. As the manager said, not fit enough to play the full 90, but you are expecting Federico Chiesa to come in for this one. So you think about that. That's a lineup and a half. So even in the midfield, have Morton and Endo with Jones in front. Even in the attack, to have Gakpo, Jota, or Nunes, and Chiesa on the right. Even you could play all four, by the way. You genuinely could. You could play Nunes up top and then you mix and match it, maybe Jota behind, maybe you want Gakpo behind, however. But you can have a really strong lineup. And most importantly, there are attacking options and strength galore there, even with the two main ones at the moment, Diaz and Salah out. So I would just like to see that complete rest, that complete rotation. And it's probably not going to be as flowing because a lot of these players haven't played much in the league, but so what? Let's just ride that wave. I think you see the benefit. The worry for me is if some of these first teamers and these key cogs, as I call them, do play, you don't pay the price now. You pay it down the line. That's when you have to pay the toll. And it can be a heavy toll, as we saw with the likes of Trent, Boslai, Salah, that injured, re-injured. They just were asked to go too many times. And this campaign, there's the extra Champions League games, as we know. We could even be a playoff, so 2 more even on top of that. There are no guarantees there. It's intense. Yeah, that is how I would like to see it. But I wouldn't bet anything solid on the lineup from there. And then the final bit, the score. I like it. Doesn't go to extra time. Remember, it's either full time and penalty. So here's what I'm going to go, or what I'm just feeling in my head. 1-1. Liverpool through on penalties. Guivan Kelleher, the hero, and pick Nunes or Jota as the scorer for me. But yeah, 1-1, penalties. I cannot get my head around anything different. Could be wildly wrong. We're not always right by any means on this, but that is what I'm expecting there, ladies and gents. So there we go. Let's see what unravels. It's the Carabao Cup. Some of you will see it as a free hit. Some of you will see it as a chance to get a trophy. Some of you might see it as a little bit of both. Who knows? But that was it with the post-conference presser at Anfield Index.